Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to strip away all that intimidating jargon surrounding economics. You know, when we hear the word economics, it's super easy to instantly picture complex stock market tickers, massive government budgets, or just really dense, boring textbooks. But actually, we're going to see that it's just the fascinating study of everyday human choices. We're going to focus entirely on the core concepts and, more importantly, their practical application in your everyday life.
Think about this for a second. Would you spend your pocket money on some snacks right now or save it up for a cool new pair of shoes? Just by facing this simple, everyday dilemma, you're already practicing economics. You've got limited funds, and you have to make a choice. It's really that simple. So here's our agenda for today. First, we'll look at needs, wants, and scarcity. Then we'll explore the cost of choosing, look at 3 key economic questions, and finally, how societies make choices. Let's dive in and trace these core concepts from your personal wallet all the way up to massive national systems. All right, let's jump right into section 1, needs, wants, and scarcity. We really have to begin by identifying the root of the ultimate human problem. Basically, it's the stuff we absolutely must have versus the stuff we just really desire. Our needs, those are the essentials. We're talking food, water, shelter, the non-negotiables for basic survival. But our wants? Wow, human wants are literally unlimited, and they're constantly upgrading too. Think about it. You might want a bicycle to get around. But once you have it, you suddenly want a motorbike. Got the motorbike? Now you want a car. It's a constantly moving target. Take a look at this. A simple thali meal perfectly represents a fundamental human need. But here's the catch. You can't just wish a meal like this into existence, right? Real, tangible resources like agricultural land, human labor, and water are actually required to produce the food that satisfies these basic needs. And that brings us to what is arguably the most important mathematical equation in all of economics. Unlimited wants plus limited resources equals scarcity. Because resources like land, water, capital, and technology are strictly finite, absolutely everyone is forced to confront this universal problem. From a single family to a giant enterprise, all the way up to a massive government, scarcity is the exact reason we can't just have everything we want. Which leads us perfectly into section 2, the cost of choosing. Since we simply can't have it all, we are forced to make choices. And every single choice we make has a hidden price tag attached to it. To see the practical application of how scarce resources have alternative uses, just look at steel. It's a highly valuable, totally limited resource. We could choose to allocate our steel to create life-saving, precision medical equipment.
Or, we could use that exact same scarce resource to manufacture everyday household refrigerators, keeping our food fresh.
Or we could even forge it into massive aircraft engines for global transport. The practical application here is stark. Choosing one alternative forces us to give up the others. If we pour all our available steel into building airplanes, well, we literally don't have enough left over for medical scissors. So, the absolutely crucial point here is understanding opportunity cost. This is the foundational mathematical logic behind literally every economic decision we make. It's not just about the actual cash you spent. It's about the value of the next best alternative that you had to sacrifice. That is your true cost. Let's look at a super practical example of this. Imagine a farmer with a limited amount of land, water, and labor. They can grow barley or wheat. If they want to produce more barley, they absolutely have to sacrifice some of their wheat crop. Economists map this trade-off on something called a production possibility curve. Moving along that curve means that to gain one thing, something else has to be given up. That sacrificed wheat, that's the real opportunity cost of growing the barley. Now, let's scale this up in section 3, 3 key economic questions. Let's see how this builds from a single farmer's field to the massive macro-level choices that shape entire societies. When we scale up, it's not just a farmer deciding on crops anymore. Every single economy on Earth must answer 3 fundamental questions to manage their scarcity: what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. First up, what to produce. Think about agricultural policy for a second. Governments and farmers must weigh short-term economic gains against long-term sustainability. For instance, sugarcane yields incredibly high profits, but man, it is highly water-intensive. On the flip side, drought-resistant millets save water and improve soil health. So choosing sugarcane comes with a massive opportunity cost, a foregone water savings and soil health. Second question, how to produce. Once you actually know what you're making, producers have to figure out the right mix of resources. They've got to decide whether to rely on a labor-intensive method using human workers, which you see a lot in agriculture and handicrafts, or to invest heavily in capital-intensive methods using automated machinery and advanced tech, like you'd see in steel or auto manufacturing. And third, for whom to produce. Say you're a shoe manufacturer. You need to deeply analyze consumer demand and income levels. Are you allocating your scarce leather and rubber to make formal shoes for high-income office-goers, or are you making flexible rubber-soled sports shoes for athletes? Answering this ensures that limited resources aren't wasted on things people just don't want or need. This brings us to our final part, Section 4, How Societies Make Choices. Now that we know those three big questions, we really have to look at who actually gets to answer them. Depending on how a nation answers, they'll fall into one of three distinct economic systems. On one end of the spectrum, we have a market economy, where the questions of what, how, and for whom are answered entirely by the forces of demand and supply. It relies on private individuals and competition to drive innovation and keep prices low. On the far other end, we have a planned economy, where the allocation of resources and pricing of goods is put completely in the hands of the government. There's a great quote from our source material that says, "Often, the government acts like a referee in a football match." And this just brilliantly illustrates the government's role in a pure market economy. They don't control the prices or micromanage production. Instead, they just act like a referee. They ensure safety, maintain law and order, and just make sure the economic game can be played fairly by everyone involved.
But here's the reality. Pure systems rarely ever exist. Most nations actually use a mixed economy. A fantastic example of this is India after its major 1991 economic reforms. A mixed system allows private enterprise, competition, and innovation to totally flourish, while the government still steps in to regulate fairness and provide vital public goods that the free market might just ignore. Things like public roads, streetlights, and basic education.
You know, it is pretty fascinating to realize that the word economics actually comes from the Greek word oikonomia, which roughly translates to household management. Ultimately, whether you're a family managing a household budget, an enterprise studying market trends, or a government steering a nation's global trade policy, good economic decisions rely on analyzing data to optimize limited resources. It's exactly the same fundamental core concept, just scaled up. So I want to leave you with this. The next time you have a little extra money, say 100 rupees, ask yourself, will you buy a notebook right now or save up for that tennis racket you've been eyeing? More importantly, what is the exact opportunity cost of your choice? Because whether you realize it or not, every single decision you make is a practical exercise in economics. So, what will your next choice cost you?